Today's episode is all about limiting beliefs that keep you stuck in your survival strategies. And most people think that these are just small mindset problems, but they run a lot deeper and they live within your nervous system. They shape your behavior long before you ever learn the language to actually name them. And they're not annoying habits either. They're survival strategies that once kept you safe as a kid. Limiting beliefs aren't born into adulthood either. They grow roots in childhood and they sink into the cracks created by emotional neglect, unpredictability, chaos, and parents who couldn't meet your needs. And when you don't get what you needed when you were small, your brain makes up stories to make sense of the gap. So stories like people only stay if I give something. My needs create problems, and the safest version of me is the smallest one. Love has to be earned, and if I let people close, I'm only going to get hurt. And it is so much better to be hyper independent and hyper vigilant than to depend on anybody else. And good things do not last, so don't get too comfortable. These beliefs are not logical, they are protective. And your younger self came up with them the same way a kid will stack pillows around themselves to feel safe at night. It worked then, but it doesn't work now as an adult. And you will still hold on to these beliefs even when they are unhealthy and they hurt you, because the confusing part is you think you'd want to drop these beliefs immediately, but the truth is you cling to them because they feel familiar. Predictability feels like safety even when it is unhealthy and extremely painful. Your brain would rather stay in a prison that it understands than walk into freedom that is filled with uncertainty. A belief like, I can only rely on myself, hurts you and it isolates you and it burns you out. Yet it also feels like home because it once protected you from disappointment. And letting go means that you have to face a possibility that someone might actually show up for you. And that vulnerability can feel more dangerous than the exhaustion of just staying stuck. And letting these beliefs go require you to admit the one thing that a lot of people try to avoid. You're not in danger anymore. The beliefs that you grew up with, that you once thought were going to keep you safe, you need to teach your nervous system a new form of safety now. You can do that. And the toughest part is that when you choose to heal, healing is not like a quiet knock at the door. It barges in and starts rearranging the furniture. It asks you questions you have avoided for years and questions that turn your stomach because you already know the answers, but you've been afraid to face them. Healing will make you confront the fact that your independence grew out of abandonment, not strength. It makes you face that your people-pleasing came from a home where your value depended on how much peace you provided. It makes you look at your hypervigilance and see a child who had to monitor moods just to stay safe. And it makes you see that your emotional numbness was once a brilliant strategy that has turned into a cage now. And you're going to have to step out of the persona that once kept you alive. You will face the grief of realizing you deserved more than you got. And you will face the anger of how long you had to survive. You'll face the fear of being seen without the mask. And you'll face the guilt of choosing yourself instead of caretaking for everybody else. And you'll realize that everything that you thought was holding your life together were really just coping mechanisms that aren't really working for you anymore. And here's something to really understand is that when something hurts, your brain will adapt. When connection isn't safe, the brain learns self-reliance. And when emotions aren't even welcomed at all, the brain learns to shut them down. When unpredictability is constant, the brain learns hyper-awareness. Your nervous system does not operate on logic. It's never going to ask you, what is the most healthy path for you? All it will ask is what is going to keep you safe. And this is why you revert to old patterns even after years of progress. And this is why triggers will put you right back at the same age where you almost feel like you can't even manage them. And this isn't weakness, this is your wiring. Your triggers will pull up old versions of you that were created in moments without that safety. And your system reacts to those moments like they're happening all over again. And so your limiting beliefs are not random fears. their interpretations your younger self created when they had no other tools. And so those interpretations become your actual rules in life, the rules that then become patterns, and those unhealthy patterns that now become your identity. And healing is the process of separating your identity from the injury. So as you start healing and growing, the entire emotional scaffolding that you've built your life on is going to start to shift and feel very shaky. And then all at once, you will stop assuming that you're the problem. You will stop apologizing for your own needs, and you will stop choosing people who just drain you. And you're going to stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You will stop abandoning yourself to keep other people comfortable and to keep connections alive that only benefited from that self-abandonment. And you're going to stop auditioning and performing for love. Authenticity is where it's at. And you will stop interpreting other people's emotions as your responsibility. You're going to instead realize that you can have compassion, you can have empathy for people, but you don't need to bleed for them. It is not your responsibility to save anybody else. Your only responsibility is you. And as you continue doing this, you'll realize that the relationships, the friendships, and family connections in your life are also going to change. Your choices change, your tolerance changes, and you start to choose peace over chaos. You start to choose the uncertainty of truly healing and growing over the predictability of pain. Pain is no longer going to be the narrative in which you build your entire story around. You're going to listen to your body and you're going to protect your peace the way that you have protected everybody else's. And the biggest shift happens inside. You start believing that you deserve the same care you have always given other people. And that's when your survival will no longer have the majority of the role in your life. You're going to start living the way that you have always wanted to live. And some of the key questions that you should be asking yourself just to assess and keep yourself in check is, what belief do I hold that makes me abandon myself in every single situation? What voices live inside my fear? And what evidence in my life proves I'm no longer in danger? And what version of me created this belief? And what are they trying to tell me? When you can first have the awareness, and that awareness then becomes the compassionate curiosity, you have the ability to really assess and ask yourself the right questions. Because again, your nervous system does not operate on logic. And so it's going to protect you the way that it protected you as a kid. So as you're shifting and you're making changes, you're going to have to teach it the new form of safety. And in doing so, asking yourself the logical, the pragmatic questions of, why do you feel unsafe? And is it really true? Are going to help you stay centered. It is going to be a way in which you can help calm your nervous system, because once it gets activated, your immediate reactions are going to be what always worked for you as a kid. But now as an adult, as you're healing and as you're growing, you're going to have to teach it differently. And so by doing that, you give it the ability to pause. And as you ask yourself these questions, you're confronting yourself with the truth that you've always avoided. As we wrap up this episode, I want you to keep this in mind. You're safe enough now to build a life based on worth instead of wounds. And that is where the real transformation happens.